Hello everyone, welcome back. After a very successful stream last night in our 10 p.m. show, we are back to talk Raw preview and to talk the second night of the draft, where our focus is very much going to be on Becky Lynch and on Seth Rollins, both of whom seem locks at this point to be going directly to not SmackDown, they were on SmackDown, directly to Raw. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. Becky Lynch has been tasked seemingly with the job of fixing WWE Raw. That seems to be the task ahead of her. Alongside her, Seth Rollins also seemingly with the task of fixing Monday Night Raw, bringing back the ratings, bringing back the success, even after they lose certain big names like Drew McIntyre and Charlotte Flair. They have a very difficult job ahead of them. They're aided by a couple of big name legends in Edge, in Rey Mysterio, whom USA Network at least firmly believe will be the future of the industry, despite the fact that they are the present, kind of, and very much the past of the industry. So, lot going on, lot to talk about, and of course, more than anything, it's night 2 of the draft, mate. It's night 2 of the draft. So let's get talking about it, shall we? Couple of familiar faces already in the chat. Welcome, Eleanor. Welcome back to the YouTube. Lovely to see you. Saying hi, Tom. AK, how are you as well? Saying it's story time. Oh, story time. Trying my best to at least be entertaining. Eleanor says, do you reckon Charlotte and Becky will be switching championships? Yes, I do. That makes the most logical sense for me, to have Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch on opposing brands, basically handing over championships and being really, really tense about it. I'm thinking, you know, that sort of tension that you tend to get from a Triple H and a Shawn Michaels, or when Triple H and The Rock randomly ran into each other backstage, or when Triple H and Steve Austin were. A lot of Triple H, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's just a whole lot of Triple H. So I do think that makes the most logical choice. It is very much a situation whereby it is a handover. So the championship will be handed over from one woman to the other, a full swap, very similar to what happened with the tag team championships. I think about a year ago. I think it was about a year ago that the tag team championship switch took hands. So yes, Eleanor, that is exactly what I expect to happen. I have seen you tweeting about it, and yeah, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. AK says, by the way, how are you? I'm very good, thank you, AK. Lovely to see you. I have been trying to do these shows on YouTube a bit more often. This is a purely YouTube show for people in the UK who are maybe on earlier, for people like yourself from India who are maybe on a little bit earlier. I'm basically just trying to cover a lot of topics in that. Spoiler warning will still be my home, as it were, going forwards. So for spoiler warning, that's where most of the news will be broken, as it were. But I like the idea of doing a few YouTube previews for Raw, for Smackdown, and building there. The watch time has done considerably well recently, and that is in large part because of these shows and because of you guys tuning in and checking out. The user says, hi mate, how are you doing, sir? Glad to see you. Michael's here saying hi, Tom. Welcome, Michael. Very happy to see so many familiar smiley faces and so much community that we've been able to build. Yesterday's show, the 10 p.m. Sunday night show, was a fantastic time. I had an absolutely great time in that show, and I hope all of you guys did too. We had tremendous viewership. We also had a great amount of questions and just a lot of people chatting back and forth, and that's the way to do it. Play the guitar on your MTV. Sean says, will we see Dakota Kai and Mia Yim drafted? I don't believe Mia Yim will be drafted to SmackDown, but I do believe she'll be drafted. I think she'll be staying on Raw. Dakota Kai is an interesting one. At the moment, by all accounts, Raw tonight is going to be really red heavy, like really red heavy. With so many people going to Raw that it almost looks like SummerSlam is having an exodus. That's by all reports so far. The idea is that Becky Lynch, of course, Seth Rollins will be moving to Raw. Finn Balor is a name that's been mentioned by WrestleVotes now, and there's a number of others who seem destined for the red brand. There's got to be a balance somewhere. So I do think Dakota Kai, I've got an eye on her because I think it'll be a balance between her and Alexa Bliss. Wherever Bliss goes, Dakota Kai will go the other way, but that's just my opinion on it. If you are just joining us, welcome. I am Tom Colohue. Please remember to click like on the video. Even if you're only here for a couple of seconds, that like can make a huge difference and can really help us grow right here, can really help guarantee more viewers, greater viewership, greater watch time, and literally just clicking that like button will help us on the way to that 1,000 subscribers and to that 4,000 hours watch time that will take us to a point at which we are monetized, we are making money, and we are just having a fantastic time for a wonderful, wonderful experience that I can share with so many other people. So please do consider hitting like and hitting subscribe if you haven't, and hitting that notification bell if you haven't as well. AK says, any reports on T-Bar going back to its original gimmick? I like what you did there. T-Bar, I believe, will be abandoning the gimmick. Retribution have basically bit by bit abandoned the gimmick entirely, and I'm really glad they did because it sucked. It was an awful gimmick, like a genuinely terrible faction that did basically nothing, and that's just so disappointing that that's the best they could get from it. I do want to see T-Bar going back to a previous gimmick, but it won't be a case of just going back to Dominik Dijakovic and being exactly who he was in NXT. The reason he became T-Bar and became a member of Retribution is because the WWE main roster, Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard and the like, didn't believe that he had enough character about him to actually carry a feud, and that's a problem. In NXT, you can be Dominik Dijakovic and just that be enough. However, in the main roster, that's less the case. So, I do believe T-Bar is going to be rebranded. We may get the name back, but there will be a different character going on. Welcome, Ed says, I have SummerSlam on loop most of last week. Why, mate? Why? Why are you so obsessed with SummerSlam? Are you just a big John Cena fan? What's going on, mate? Eleanor says, when do you reckon Charlotte and Becky will be switching titles? Could it be tonight or the night after Crown Jewel? My expectation is that it will be either the night after Crown Jewel on Raw, or, I think this is just as likely, during the Crown Jewel event. Before the main event, when the women's matches have already taken place, they just have that moment backstage. Now, it depends. I do think that would be something that plays for an American audience but not a Saudi audience. But I do think that will be a possibility as well. Of course, if they do it on Raw, they basically guarantee themselves some ratings. And what is Vince McMahon if not a ratings whore? It's WWE. It's the lifeblood. Can't really argue with it. Ed says, with Hit Row being drafted and will Legado del Fantasma go to SmackDown as well? Possibly, yes. I do believe Legado del Fantasma are ready for the call-up. I don't necessarily know where they're headed. I'd like to see them on Raw as a balancing act for Hit Row, but SmackDown does need some bodies in the draft, and I think that's a good balancing act to play for it, especially when you consider who we have on SmackDown. LDF versus Jeff Hardy could be great fun. Could be great fun. You've got Mustafa Ali and Mansoor versus LDF. You've got great players there, and they can do good stuff. AK Ray says, Sheamus staying or going to Raw? I do believe we're going to see Sheamus staying. That makes the most sense to me to have Sheamus stay on Raw. I feel his style is better there. However, now that Drew McIntyre's gone across, it's not impossible that Sheamus will follow and have more intense feuds. But I do think Bobby Lashley is going to SmackDown, so Sheamus wouldn't really have that many new people to feud with at the top of the card. Yes, Ed, the road to 1K for paydays. 1K. That would be a beautiful moment, because then just by watching this show, you'd be getting me paid. Just by being here and doing what you're already doing, I would be generating an income because of you guys. That for me is sort of a dream, because I'm not asking for your money. I'm gaining money from YouTube for your time. That's the dream. And that is why I do implore anyone who hasn't already clicked subscribe, please do so. And of course, stick around. If you're here for the whole show, that watch time goes up and we do great things. And of course, please click like if you haven't already. Hey Rob, how you doing, man? Great to see you. Sean says, will the brackets be released for both tournaments? Yes, they will, very, very soon. Possibly tonight, more likely on Friday. They want to make announcements, but don't necessarily want them to get in the way of the draft and the promotion for the draft. So I think it's more likely that we get news on that this coming Friday on SmackDown when the draft is officially concluded. Steve's here. Welcome, Steve. Saying, really would like LDF to go to Raw to feud with the Mysterios. I've heard Ray isn't medically cleared though at the second. Hope you're well, Tom. I'm very well, thank you. Had a very, very good show here on YouTube yesterday, which was, end result statistically was 16 watch hours in 1 hour show, which is tremendous when you consider that I only need 11 per day to monetize at the end of 12 months. Wonderful, wonderful achievement. Thanks to you guys largely. So yes, I'm very, very well. Dominic is of course clear, and the storyline right now basically is that it should be a focus on Dominic rather than Ray. That's what I think we're more likely to see. So I feel that Ray could still be visible on screen even if he's not technically cleared right now. They could continue with that. They have been drafted as a tag team, the intention being to use them as a tag team, and I do feel they will be used to put over other developing tag teams. It won't be Otis and Chad Gable at this point, but I feel there's a number of other options available to them as they continue to play out their storyline. Steve also says, I'm a dreamer, but any chance we get Imperium drafted this evening? Volta is money, but I've heard he doesn't want to move to the States full time. Volta has openly said to myself and a number of other journalists that he has no intention of moving full time to the United States. That, however, was about just over 2 years ago that he said this. And we do have to take certain things with a pinch of salt, because in 2 years a lot can change. If he's now decided to come to the US, the WWE have themselves the opportunity to gain a coup. If Volta is available, I would love to see Imperium go to Smackdown. Volta versus McIntyre writes itself. Volta versus Reigns, Volta versus Bobby Lashley. There is tremendous opportunity, and that's before we even consider someone like Cesaro. Rob says, any confirmation from you that you may have heard about what WrestleVotes tweeted? We're all desperately wanting Finn Balor to fill McIntyre's role. No confirmation. I have not personally heard anything about that. WrestleVotes, we do the rumor look back and look at the, if you watch the Cage Side Seats rumor look back, you'll see that WrestleVotes has a very good record, not an exemplary record per se, but a very good record. A large part of why they don't have like a world-beating record is because they are intentionally vague in a lot of what they say. What they've said here is one writer wants to use Balor like McIntyre is being used, as like the top-level guy. One writer. Now, that does not guarantee anything, so I wouldn't pin my hopes on it, but at the same time, it's very telling and very encouraging that anyone is banging that drum, because Finn Balor deserves opportunities. John says, who should beat Charlotte and Becky for their titles? It really depends on the landscape going forwards. Right now for Charlotte, I would say, I nearly forgot what brand she was on there. Right now for Becky, I'd say Bianca, but there's a number of changes that can be made in that time. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, I would probably go with Shayna Baszler. Of course, if you guys are following on the YouTube, you will have seen my video about Bayley's return schedule. So I'd also like to see Bayley versus Becky at WrestleMania, and I feel that would be a great opportunity to get the championship from Becky into the hands of Bayley. Ed says to Steve, congrats on 2 years. Now, I'm not sure what that's for 2 years for. I looked at Steve's YouTube channel recently when I was watching some of his videos, and he goes back 5 years. There is a grafter right there, someone working extremely hard, who deserves all the love that they are getting recently and all the new subscribers that they've been picking up. You're doing great stuff, Steve. And I congratulate you as well for the continued effort and celebrate the success that you've had. Cheers, sir. Michael says, I wish they'd keep the champions on the brand they're champions of. If they want Charlotte on SmackDown, for example, make her drop the belt first and then move. I'm inclined to agree. I do think that if you are a Raw champion, you should not be eligible for a draft. This also is a big help because it allows them to play out storylines such as, for example, Roman Reigns does not want to go to Raw, so he wants to keep his championship. However, Cesaro also doesn't want to go to Raw, so he's going hell for leather to try to get that championship as the actual guarantee of staying on SmackDown. It could add an extra element. That's just an idea I'm playing around with, but I would quite enjoy it. Rob says, Tom, this may be jumping the gun here. Do you think we will ever get all 4 horsewomen on the same brand? No. I think the four horsewomen are incredibly marketable. The WWE is fully aware of this, and I think the WWE will do everything in their power to make sure they are spread out so that everyone always has a reason to watch both Raw and SmackDown. It's much the same way they split up the Shield for a long time. Pardon me. So it took them a long time until all of the Shield were together on one brand. Actually, I don't know if it took all that long, to be honest. Either way, it's the reason they split up the Shield initially, I'll say that, so that they had draws on both shows. The whole plan is draws on every show that you can watch. And it's one of the reasons big names like Jeff Hardy actually do spend quite a bit of time on main event. I think they want to. They just want to develop other people to the level whereby they are the level of the horsewomen, but then they don't book those other people to actually get to that level. Baszler, Asuka, Bliss, they could all be at that level to a point where they could all be on Raw and the horsewomen could all be on SmackDown. But they're not. I think this is going to be quite similar to the eventual Sasha Banks and Bayley feud that we got. It took them years to get there. The feud was nowhere near as hot as it was previously by the time they actually got there, and it was used at Hell in a Cell because of a draft rather than used for any other reason. It was just a bit lackluster when it actually happened. Through no fault of the wrestlers, it just didn't quite hit home, at least for me. Dominic says, hi Tom. Welcome Dominic, how you doing mate? Who do you think will take down Roman? Thank you. I think Drew McIntyre will be the one to take the championship from Roman Reigns. I don't necessarily think it'll be a WrestleMania. Logically, if SummerSlam is taking place in the UK, surely it's got to be then. Unless they reintroduce a European Championship or the Intercontinental Championship main events again. But I do think Drew versus Roman could well be the main event of a SummerSlam if a SummerSlam takes place in the UK. Rob says, I love the idea of keeping them separate, honestly. I want the possible four-way feud to actually build slowly. It's been building for a long time, and the issue right now is that they're all heels. What I'd quite like to see is just, for once, having them all on the same side. A four horsewomen faction, that's money. Imagine the t-shirts. Just for a moment, imagine purely the t-shirts. Imagine the money they would make just from the t-shirts for the four horsewomen in a faction. Consider that and let your mind just explore, because I would love to see it. If you have just joined us and you haven't yet clicked that like button, please consider doing so. It makes a huge difference to the viewership of this particular stream, to the potential subscriber gain that we could get, and in future to the view count as well, which makes a big difference in the growth of the channel, as we are on a mission right now to get to a point where we are monetized with 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time. Over the next 3 months, we will be live on YouTube regularly, Mondays and Fridays at 6 p.m. UK time, that is 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and a 10 p.m. Sunday night show, again UK time, that's 5 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time. The reason we're doing this is to get those watch hours up, get the subscribers gained, and after the next 3 months, we will be looking at going back to dual streams for our Raw and SmackDown watch parties as well. They were always quite successful shows, and I had a great time on them, so it's definitely something I'm looking at in the near future. Alyssa says, why is Seth Rollins going back to Raw? Feel like he just got to SmackDown last year. Love him on SmackDown, better on SmackDown. The reason I believe Seth Rollins is going to Raw is because Raw need him badly. Raw just desperately need top-level talent, because most of his top-level talent is either gone or going. Drew McIntyre, gone. Charlotte Flair, gone. Bobby Lashley, going, I believe. They need top-level talent. Who do you replace Charlotte Flair with? Becky Lynch. Who do you replace Drew McIntyre with? Seth Rollins. At the moment, the top-level talent, the star power as it were, is Randy Orton and AJ Styles, and they're both in the tag division, both of them. Meanwhile on SmackDown, if you don't consider the draft as it's coming, you have Roman, obviously at the top, you have McIntyre, you have Flair, you have Lynch, you have Banks, you have Rollins, you have Edge, and so on and so forth. Now yes, Edge has now moved to Raw. It's not a name I mentioned earlier and I should have done, but at the same time, it's one of those things where Raw is coming out of this a gigantic loser. Just a terrible failure, because SmackDown battered them on Friday. Tonight, Raw fights back. Tonight, Raw wins night 2. You don't get much better when it comes to winning night 2 than Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. That, for me, is the best way to really get people excited. If the number one pick is immediately off the top, Becky Lynch, the SmackDown Women's Champion, that immediately makes people tune in, makes people invested, and means that people will stick around. Rob says, as regards a 4 horsewomen faction, I love that idea. The merch sales will be astronomical. Going back to Drew and Roman, I've always said Drew McIntyre should be one of the very few considered to actually beat Roman Reigns. I hope they take their time with this, because Drew's been in and around the WWE Championship for nearly 2 years. He's back and around the WWE Championship now. Looks like he'll be taking on Big E either on Raw tonight or in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for Crown Jewel, which means that what are they going to do for the future for Drew McIntyre if he's been in and around the championship for 2 years? If they immediately move him straight back into a championship picture for another top championship, people are going to start turning. In the same way that Becky Lynch at the height of her Raw Women's Championship run, people started turning. It was a difficult time for every Becky Lynch fan. She's back now, and they've lent into it a little bit with the character that she's portraying, but at the same time, you have to protect people in a variety of ways, and one of the easiest ways to protect people is simply by not overexposing them to a level at which people just get sick of them. Just get sick of their face. I think Drew McIntyre is at risk of getting close to that now. I really hope we don't go to that point. The reason for the Jinder Mahal feud is to bring him back down a peg. If now we're in a possibility whereby he's moving across to SmackDown, let's have him feud with people a little bit lower down the card first. Let's have him feud with a Robert Roode for a little bit. Yeah? Who else is there in the heel side on SmackDown? Not that many when you take out Rollins. No, seriously, who is there? That's a problem. Other than Roman, there aren't many top heels, are there? Well, that could be awkward. Maybe he'll feud with Mace for a couple of months. Stranger things have happened. There's no Apollo Crews either. There's no Apollo Crews. Huh. SmackDown needs heels, don't they? Still very much suspecting Drew McIntyre. Thank you, Ed, suggesting Drew versus Sami. Yes, that's what I'm going for. Drew versus someone on the level of Sami Zayn, someone who's compelling, charismatic, but not necessarily a threat. That's a good way to build the guy. Corbin. Happy Corbin. There's your guy right there. Rob says Becky Lynch should come out on Raw if she's drafted and say, this is not how I left my division. The funny thing is, Becky Lynch has a real affinity for SmackDown, to the point that I never wanted her to go to Raw. I never wanted to see it. Much like I don't think I ever wanted Roman to leave Raw. He just felt like a Raw guy. Now, it's happened, and it worked out. I didn't mind Becky on Raw. It gave me a reason to tune in. And at the time, I really needed a reason to tune in. Now, of course, with McIntyre moving, with Flair moving, I once again need a reason to tune in. Becky Lynch is kind of it. Alyssa says, why have they been keeping Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins apart? Alyssa would prefer Seth versus Roman at WrestleMania. She thinks it would be better than The Rock. They've been keeping Seth and Roman apart because Seth and Roman have been integrally linked for a decade. I think at this point it was we're 1 year away from a full decade with the Shield and the feuds that they've had since. It's a lot. It's a lot. So they've been keeping them separate so they can very much go their own way. That said, Seth's pursuit of championships ain't going away anytime fast. And if he's moved across to Raw, Big E needs to be careful because Seth is coming straight for him. And I do mean straight for him. He'll be breaking into Big E's house. He'll be breaking into the New Day's Up, Up, Down, Down recording studio. He'll be doing whatever the hell he wants. Seth Rollins, as we know, is a champion in Up, Up, Down, Down, mostly Madden. That's where the feud between Seth and AJ started. Madden. AJ Styles, for anyone who doesn't know, really sore loser. Like, genuinely terrible loser. Really sore loser. But at the same time, that's probably how you get as good as AJ Styles. You just refuse to be a good loser. Michael says, you think they pick up where they left off with Becky and Bianca on Raw? Yes, I do. I very much do. I think the match finish at Extreme Rules was inconclusive for this reason. It makes perfect sense for me for that feud to continue, with Sasha Banks acting as spoiler right now to keep them somewhat separated, so that when they do join, so that when they get violent again, it doesn't feel like we've seen it every week for the past 4 months and stuff like that. I think that's the right move to make and the right way to play it, and I suspect that's why they've played it this way. Ari, welcome. Says, imagine a fatal four-way between Seth, Roman, Brock, and The Rock. Ooh. I mean, it's good, but throw Samoa Joe in there. We haven't really spoken about the concept of Samoa Joe to SmackDown. I don't think it's happening. But it'd be fun though, right? I'm not the only one who really, really wishes we got a moment like that. Also, welcome, Ari. If you are new here, please do consider hitting subscribe and hit like on the video if you haven't already. That really makes a big difference to me and I really appreciate it. And ask whatever questions you would like. Jump in with any more questions you've got. We are Ask Me Anything here. If you have any questions, jump in, say hi. Noob says, good afternoon, Mr. Colohue. How are you doing? Doing very well, thank you, Noob. Noob, as it's you, I strongly suspect tonight Asuka gets drafted to SmackDown. And I think, or at least I hope, we get a backstage promo from her. That's the dream. That's the dream. I think the women's division on SmackDown could really use her right now as a top-level face to take on Sasha Banks and to elevate people such as Carmella, Toni Storm, and the like. Noob says, I hope that Becky Lynch gets drafted to Raw. I don't necessarily hope, but at the same time, I'm not against it. I think logically it's the right move for Raw. I think logically it's the right move for Becky Lynch as well. Steve says, thank you for the kind words. Really appreciate it. The 2-year anniversary is related to AEW Dynamite, but thank Ed for the kind words regardless. The channel has been going for 5 years. I will DM you about this at some point, Steve, and see if there's anything I can do to help you grow bigger and faster. You have been growing extremely well, and I'm extremely happy to see it. But do let me know if there's anything I can do. I really do appreciate you inviting me onto your channel recently to talk about the draft. My predictions, right, so to break it down. For anyone who doesn't already know, and Steve, feel free to send a link to Ed so that he can put the link in the chat. I think you should be able to put links in the chat anyway. But yeah, feel free to link the video where I featured, as well as a number of other wrestling YouTubers and fans, where basically Steve asked several people to come on and say, who do you think will be drafted? Who are your top 3 draft picks for the incoming draft? My choices were Roman Reigns, which as we know did not happen, Drew McIntyre, which did, and Bianca Belair, which did as well. Bianca Belair is a name that I've been suggesting for a while, just because I feel the best way to keep her on a constant upward trajectory is to give her a change away from a championship. A move to Raw, perfect way to do that. I wouldn't have her beating Becky Lynch just yet. I would have Bayley defeat Becky Lynch, and then I'd have Bianca chasing Bayley, but she'd get the win over Becky at some point in some way. Rob says, Tom, I have to say, after SmackDown's ending last Friday, I'm legit terrified that they are itching to jump into a feud with Charlotte and Sasha. Sasha needs to chase if that's the plan. With them both being heels at the moment, I don't think they'll see it straight away. I think that moment wasn't necessarily just about Charlotte and Sasha. I think it was that moment of dominance from Charlotte. I think in reality, the focus was going to be Charlotte and Becky, teasing tension there, because they're not only going to trade championships, they're also going to face off at Survivor Series. So really that moment was a build for them. They do need to start building to Survivor Series at some point, as Roman and Big E have been doing recently as well. Now, I don't think Sasha will be the one chasing. I think with Charlotte, It will be maybe an Asuka feud early on. Maybe Liv Morgan finally gets an opportunity. Maybe Toni Storm. I think for a month or two, until the Rumble, they kill time with developing talent. Or at least this is how I would book it if I'm going to fantasy book a little bit. Outside of that, I think logically, I would be moving Shayna Baszler to SmackDown, and I'd be having her chase up on that. I would definitely be having her chase up on it. Sasha Banks, I would not have as a champion for a little while yet. I would give her another 8 months or so. And then I'd have her chasing Baszler, for example. Noob says, however, I am a little concerned about Charlotte Flair. If she's got drafted to SmackDown, don't expect Asuka because she has unfinished business from earlier this year. SmackDown is currently really top heavy with women. They're going to lose some big names. If they've already lost Bianca, as we know. If they lose Becky, they're in a position where you've got Charlotte and Sasha at the very top, but you need people sort of in the mid card. Asuka, I know you're a big fan. Right now, she's considered a mid carder at best. After being squashed by Doudrop, mid carder at best. And I think we've got to keep an eye on Eva Marie as well. Eva Marie versus Liv Morgan could be a good feud. Eva Marie versus Toni Storm. It makes sense to have a lower down the card heel such as Eva Marie just get beaten up by lower down the card faces. Makes perfect sense, and I'd love to see it happen. Rob says, also, do you think Sasha is now in a position where she doesn't need the title anymore? She comes back for big matches only now. Sasha Banks is one of those with such an incredibly passionate fan base that I don't believe she has ever needed a championship. I think she deserves championships, and I think those championships have been given to her because of that. I think her reign, at least her most recent reign, was very good, building up to Bianca Belair taking it from her. I enjoyed that, even though she didn't have many opponents, and even then it was just beating up Carmella again and again and again. Hashtag beat up Carmella. But at the same time, Sasha Banks has star power. If you'll forgive the term, she has it. And when you have it doesn't go away. If she can be one of those who works a limited date contract, who just comes back for the big name matches, then that is someone who can add a lot to that division, just a lot to that division. Coming in for marquee matches, Sasha Banks essentially could have that Brock Lesnar status. We know what she can do in the ring. We know what she can do chasing championships. I certainly think there is more to come between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. They've left it open at a 1-for-1. There is a decider coming. Alyssa says, who do you think will win Queen's Crown? Hope Liv Morgan or Shayna Baszler? If any girl wouldn't care. I think Shayna Baszler should be the winner of the Queen's Crown tournament, and I do believe she thoroughly deserves it. I would have her winning it in Saudi Arabia. I would then have her going straight after big names. I would then, in the build-up to Royal Rumble, I'd have Baszler taking on Sasha Banks and defeating her, and then I'd probably have her winning the Rumble and going after Charlotte Flair. That's what I would be doing. Now, I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but that's certainly what I would be doing. That makes a star for your company. I don't want to see a whole lot of pissing around, waiting and teasing. Oh, we're going to give Shayna the chance. We're going to give Shayna the chance. There is a push coming for Shayna Baszler. She's been separated from Jax. I believe she's going to be moved from Raw. And I know that there is a push coming. Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you very kindly. It seems like you're enjoying these 1 p.m. your time streams as well, mate. Thank you very much for that. High class mods. I do have very high class mods. One might say the best. And no worries, Steve. The way I see it, we're all in this together. Now, I seem to be a rare breed in that fact. A lot of people see other creators as competition, but you are someone who's always been very giving. With your time, with your channel, with your resources. It's one of the reasons I really wanted you on for the WrestleMania pre-show that we did. I really enjoyed that. Really genuinely enjoyed that. And at some point when I'm able to dedicate more time to this, we'll do it again, mate. We'll definitely do it again. Anyone who's that giving with their time deserves my time, deserves my effort, and deserves to be put over as best I can. You're a good guy, mate. It's that simple. Rob says, I would love for Liv Morgan to get into a main title feud with Charlotte. That would be awesome along with Shayna. I wouldn't necessarily have Liv Morgan winning that feud. I would make it just 1 month of feuding. The two of them going at it physically for the entire month. Liv Morgan actually standing up to Charlotte and being a physical equal, at least briefly. Maybe a bit of guerrilla tactics at the same time. And then coming up short in the actual match at pay-per-view. Clean, but coming up short nonetheless. That's what I would do. That, for me, it doesn't create a top-level star. It doesn't. But it creates opportunities. It gives someone the chance to say, hey, did you see the match with Liv Morgan? She's really impressive. That's all you really need as far as I'm concerned. Michael says, Bianca is a good example of when they treat someone like a star, they become a star. I wish they could do that with others. It really is that simple. This is one I've been saying for a while. I think the first time I said this was about Bray Wyatt when he was en route to becoming WWE champion. The best way to create a star is to say, okay, this person is a star. With Drew McIntyre, they said, this person's a top-level star. Fake it till you make it. And he did. He acted like a top-level star. They booked him like a top-level star. He became a top-level star. Look at Damian Priest. Damian Priest, perfect. He's a top-level star. Put him with Bad Bunny. Put him against Miz and Morrison at WrestleMania. Give him a fairly marquee match in that. Give him a US championship. Give him a big winning streak. Treat him like a star. Fans will recognize it. And he will become a star. They did the same early on with Dominic Mysterio wrestling against Seth Rollins. Treat them like stars. They become stars. Bianca Belair is a perfect example of how well that works. Also, Bianca's a perfect example of knowing when not to overdo it. She was always going to lose the championship at SummerSlam. Always. Becky Lynch got the call late saying to come back because Sasha Banks became unavailable, but Sasha Banks was winning that championship back at SummerSlam. That was the plan. That would have meant that Bianca was then chasing a championship again, creating more babyface energy. The chase is a babyface system. That for me is a perfect example, yes. Noob says, I don't know if we get a mid-card women's title in WWE, so hopefully we might see it next year. I don't necessarily want one. I don't think there's necessarily enough women. I would rather see a decent tag team division. Really, I would genuinely rather see a decent tag team division, and that becomes the mid-card title, as it were. I'd rather see that. We could get a lot more variation at the top level, and I just want mid-card feuds with storylines. Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal wasn't for a championship, but it did have storyline. I cared about it. We can do more of this. Rob says, yeah, I wouldn't have Liv win it all, just for some credibility to build for the future. Absolutely. Wrestling against Charlotte Flair does wonders for your career. That is fact. If you wrestle against the top stars, people tune in. Even if it's just people looking for the match on YouTube. It does wonders for your career. That's what built Bianca Belair. Wrestling against Bayley, wrestling against Sasha Banks. Treat them like stars, people will catch on. Austin Palmiter, welcome mate, says, could we see Shayna win the Queen of the Ring? I do believe so, and she is definitely my pick for the tournament. Just before we continue with more questions, thank you everyone, by the way, for so many great questions. For anyone just joining or who is new to these shows, I am Tom Colohue. I do stream live here on YouTube and, of course, on Twitch as well. Later on today, about 3 hours and 20 minutes from now, I will be doing a exclusive news show called Spoiler Warning over on twitch.tv/Tom Colohue, so by all means check that out. If you haven't subscribed here, please do so. We do news videos almost daily. We do essentially 5 news videos a week, which come from Spoiler Warning, which feature a lot of news that would later appear on different wrestling websites and the like. There was, for example, the news of Sonya Deville training for an in-ring return, which was only came available elsewhere a month later. There was news about Edge's return schedule. I've just released a video on Bayley's return schedule, the Shayna Baszler push incoming. There is a lot of news that comes through. Please do consider clicking subscribe if you want more information like that. And of course, please do remember to click like on the video as well. Every like on this, every comment on this increases my chances of gaining views, gaining viewers, subscribers and the like, and eventually getting to a point where I can do this full time and create a hell of a lot more content. So please, if you haven't, click that little thumbs up. That would be a huge benefit to me, and it would mean a lot to me. So please do consider it if you haven't already. Steve says, with the draft not taking shape till after Crown Jewel, should the 3 weeks also help build Survivor Series? For example, make Charlotte defend title all the time so she feels mistreated and wants to represent SmackDown at Survivor Series. I think they're going to be careful about that one. They do still have a month to build Survivor Series, but I do feel that Survivor Series needs a bit more of a build than it's gotten so far. So far, the only real build it's had is, oh, I'm Big E, I'm the champion now, see you at Survivor Series. And that's basically it. We need more for that, especially if Survivor Series is going to be the big deal that it has been in the past. Survivor Series has not felt big for recently. It just hasn't. They haven't been able to get it into one of those massive stadium arenas that they've been able to do with SummerSlam, with the Royal Rumble, and of course with WrestleMania. It's one of the only shows that's definitely not going tonight. So I would like more of a push towards it. Rob says, Sasha and Bayley are examples of not even being a legend per se just yet. They seem to care so much about the division and the future. Even being horsewomen, these two work hard to build others. They do. All 4 of the horsewomen have given a huge amount back. Charlotte Flair gets a lot of crap, but she has made stars. She has genuinely made stars. Even just of the people around her in the 4 horsewomen, including when Bayley came up, for example, she has made stars in the feuds that she's had and the wrestling matches that she's had as well. I still go back and watch Flair versus Asuka 1. I watch that match a lot. It's an extremely good wrestling match. Just incredibly good wrestling match. Basically the beginning of WrestleMania, I believe it's 34, where you also had the triple threat between Seth, Finn and The Miz. Just tremendous. What a WrestleMania that was. There's a number of others like that who've just given a lot back as they've gone, but nobody else has been pushed to that top level where they can give back. If you're not at the top, it's hard to get people to the top, because the job is to reach down and bring people up. But if you're down there yourself, people are just going to stand on you. Basically. Alyssa says, do you think WWE need to work better baby faces because they don't book great baby faces? Disagree now. There are definitely times when they haven't booked baby faces particularly well. But there's also plenty of times when they have. Look at Bianca Belair. Look at Damian Priest right now. Look at Matt Riddle. They've done really good jobs with a lot of these people, and I think they're doing incredibly good work. Now, of course, all 3 of those are currently on Raw, and Raw, the B show, the show where everyone's thinking it's a terrible show, has been the thing that's lifted so many of those. They can do it, which just makes it even more disappointing when they don't. Ed says, see you all later at Spoiler Warning. Have a great rest of the stream. Thank you very much for joining us, Ed. I will see you later on for Spoiler Warning on twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. Michael says, I'm so excited for this Sonya-Naomi feud that's brewing. Naomi could be a good one to take on Charlotte. Certainly gives her the opportunity to get further screwed by Sonya Deville. Naomi and Charlotte could be a lot of fun. Rob says, Charlotte is amazing. I don't care what anybody says. Her last name has nothing to do with my likeness of her. Interesting phrasing, mate. Do you look like Charlotte Flair? She is the woman. And she is. She very much is. No matter how far and how high Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch climb, Charlotte Flair is the most valuable player in the women's divisions of WWE. She simply is. She is the top woman in the industry. No matter how far and how fast Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks have reached that level, they have not caught up to her. Not just yet. Not just yet. And welcome, May says, update on Bayley return. The last update I had on the return of Bayley was in a YouTube video that I have already posted here. If you go back into my channel after this show, you can basically type Bayley Tom Colohue and you'll find it pretty much immediately. It was like a week and a half ago. So just go into my videos and then scroll down slightly and there will be Bayley in an NWO shirt letting you know that that's the right one. Steve says, would be a privilege to collaborate again in the future, Tom. You're one of the good guys. Always have my support with everything you do. Thank you very kindly, Steve. We will definitely work together at some point in the future. I'm looking forward to it. Noob says, a lot of fans of Asuka keep saying that she's a GOAT or a legend. I know I'm a fan of her, but I hope she'll do better character development. She needs a bit of a rebrand, or at least a bit of a reinvention. She's a very compelling character, but they've not given her enough to really work with, and I think fans have let her down. When she cuts a promo and the fans are going, what? I'm not happy with those fans. You complain about the WWE not booking characters well, and then you go and do that to Asuka. It's infuriating as a fan to sit and watch that. It's absolutely infuriating. Asuka doesn't just deserve better from WWE, she deserves better from the fans. Alyssa says, should Bayley return as a babyface? Yes, I do think she should. And I also think she's basically guaranteed to. What Bayley gained in her heel run and her time as SmackDown Women's Champion was respect. Not just from her peers, but from fans as well. She earned respect. And in gaining that respect, she basically, for me, earned the right to come back in the same way that Triple H did so many years ago, like 20 years ago. Triple H returned after being the biggest heel in the company. He walked back in and he was adored because they missed him. Give me that for Bayley. Just give me that for Bayley. I think she's basically made for it. Rob says, the thing that gets me is that there are so many Sasha fans that have this narrative that WWE and Vince absolutely hate her. And I think that is so ridiculous. Sorry, there's a helicopter going over. Got distracted because it sounds like he's literally about to crash into my window. With Sasha Banks and Vince McMahon, they genuinely adore each other. I've said before, I'll say it again. Sasha Banks is Vince McMahon's favourite person in the world. And yes, I'm counting his children. She is his favourite person in the world. I mentioned this years ago. One of my very first reports on Sportskeeda was that Vince McMahon loved Sasha Banks, and Vince McMahon was not at all worried about her taking time off. People always forget just how much I've reported. Always forget. I need to do one of those videos, because genuinely it'd be a case of like 87 times Tom Colohue's been proven right. Then the next year it'll be like 117 times that Tom Colohue's been proven right. Because I've said a lot, and a lot of stuff has been proven true. And Anne says, do you think Kevin Owens will not renew his contract and go to AEW, considering how WWE is treating him nowadays? You've got that sort of flipped hand, right? So, you're suggesting that WWE isn't treating him well, so he's not renewing his contract. In reality, it's the other way around. There is an ongoing negotiation, and Kevin Owens, right now, has not signed a new contract. So, because of that, the WWE has started to use him as a more of an enhancement talent. That's not unusual, and it's something that most wrestlers completely understand. If he's going out the door, and the WWE don't know for certain, but they can't take the risk, if he goes out the door, he can't go out on a hot streak. He has to give back before he does so. Same thing happened with Dean Ambrose. He 100% understood that too. If you're leaving the company, you go out on your back. That is tradition. That is the right way to do things. That's what Adam Cole did with Kyle O'Reilly. That's how you do it. It is not a case that the WWE are treating Kevin Owens badly, so he's leaving. It's a case of Kevin Owens might be leaving, so the WWE are squeezing every little bit that they can out of him before he does so. Michael says, I see that a lot from fans too, that Vince hates Sasha. Just because she's put a lot of people over, that doesn't mean Vince hates her. It absolutely doesn't. And if she was always at the very top of the division, people would turn on her. One of the reasons she has such a passionate fan base is because she's never been the top woman. And I don't believe she's ever been the top woman in the company. I don't believe that's happened. That is a positive, because you will root for an underdog way more than you will root for someone at the top. You'll root for You'll root for Daniel Bryan more than Roman Reigns. One of the great things about Daniel Bryan's legacy is because he got injured, people missed him. This is one of the things I always say when people ask for like relationship advice. Oh, well, we spend all this time together, but I just want to see it go a bit further. All right, walk away. They can't miss you if you're there all the time. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Bayley, perfect example. I'm sure when she returns, she'll return to cheers. Roman was missed. Brock Lesnar was missed. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So having Sasha away from championships, treated like she's not that big a deal, or even just not treated particularly well at times, it's a tactic. It's not always intentional. I don't want to give the WWE that much credit. But I have to be completely honest. It's a tactic that works. And I don't understand why anybody would choose not to follow up on that. It's the way it is done. And so it should be. For anyone just joining, or anyone who hasn't done so yet, please do consider clicking that subscribe button. If you are a subscriber, you will get notifications of these videos when I go live. We are Ask Me Anything streams. You can jump in at any time and ask questions. And of course, you will also be informed as to when my recorded videos come out. The recorded videos are live from Spoiler Warning, which is our new show that takes place on Twitch. If you want to watch Spoiler Warning live, just pop on over to twitch.tv/Tom Colohue for more on that. And of course, click like on the video, please, if you haven't already. That does help me grow, find a new audience. We're currently at 9 likes. 1 away from double figures. Just 1. Just 1. Anand says, do you think the Usos will get drafted to Raw? And at Crown Jewel, Heyman will turn on Reigns and Lesnar will win the Universal Championship. No, but I think there's a route to that, and that route involves AJ Styles. I think if the Usos get drafted to Raw, Styles and Omos will then get drafted to SmackDown, with the promise that Paul Heyman will not be staying on SmackDown. In that instance, I think it's more likely that Lesnar won't win the championship, but Heyman will still be a problem and will be dealt with by Roman. That's what I expect, if that's how they're going that way. I don't necessarily think that's the case, though, and I do think Roman is going to pick up the win against Brock Lesnar, and then Brock Lesnar will probably spend a bit more time on Raw. Or we could get Lesnar versus Lashley. Or we could get Lashley versus... There's so many good options on SmackDown right now. So many good options. Alyssa says, really don't see Belair winning the belt back, can't connect with her. I think she'll win the belt back at some later point. The Raw Women's Championship, of course, will be a new belt to her. I think she'll be in and around the championships for a while yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Noob says, that's what I like about Asuka, and that's her character. She's a very compelling character, reminds me of a video game character, but fans on Twitter turn on her, whether it's booking or creative. It's not just the booking, it's not just the creative, it's also some fans are dicks. With certain performers, you have to blame the fans a little bit. And Asuka is one of those, where I definitely think the fans have played a major part in dragging her down in the eyes of management. That's what I believe. Rob says, I'm so interested in seeing how this Heyman and Roman and Brock story plays out. They have so much to play with in this story. They do. They do. And I think this is one that we'll come back to at some later point. It's certainly a marquee match, but I think it'll be a little while before we see Brock again. Probably more Royal Rumble time that we'll see Brock return. Jermaine says, hi Tom, how has your day been going? Great, I hope. It has indeed. I woke up, I worked from 9 to 5, and now here I am having streamed here for an hour. So it's one of those. I haven't exactly had a lot of fun, but I've had this hour-long stream, and that's been great fun. So yeah, 8 hours of working brings me here to this 1 hour, which is technically working, but also it's just fun. So yes, Jermaine, I've had a great time so far today. How are you, mate? And Anne says, your take on Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega's match? Sorry if I've already missed this. Great match. Very high quality wrestling. Very high quality. I would have liked to see a bit more build to it, but I'm excited by what we got. Now, as goes with the future, they clearly have some unfinished business. So it's nice to see an exhibition match every now and then. It's nice to see this as sort of an introduction of Bryan Danielson, trying to get used to him not being called Daniel Bryan. But it's one of those. I think it was a really, really good match that I would probably watch again. But at the same time, I do feel it could have done with a bit more build. Steve says, what's your favourite match in pay-per-view of all time? My favourite match is the WrestleMania 12 main event, the Iron Man match between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. My favourite pay-per-view of all time is the first one I ever watched, SummerSlam 1998. The main event of SummerSlam 98 was The Undertaker versus Steve Austin, but the undercard featured D'Lo Brown and Val Venus, Edge and Sable versus Mark Mero and Jacqueline, the Insane Clown Posse wrapping the oddities down to the ring against Kai and Tai, X-Pac versus Jeff Jarrett in a hair versus hair match with Howard Finkel doing crotch chops. Wow, this is a whole lot. There's a lot. And then, of course, we had Triple H versus The Rock in a ladder match, Ken Shamrock versus Owen Hart in a Lion's Den match, and just, it's a wonderful pay-per-view. If you haven't seen SummerSlam 1998, I do implore you to check it out. It's just glorious. Noob says he believes it'll be the other way around. The Usos turning on Paul Heyman. That's where things get dark, so I'm keeping my expectations high. I wouldn't do that, Noob. When it comes to Raw, I wouldn't have high expectations. Rob says, now this is a question for everyone. Picks for the Royal Rumble winners. If I'm a betting man, and I'm not, I'm going Bayley or Shayna Baszler. Drew McIntyre potentially a second time around, but I think it'll be more likely a Raw challenger. I'd like to see Finn Balor win it this year. I think if Finn Balor goes to Raw, he would be a perfect choice to win the Royal Rumble and go up against a champion like Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Steve says, excellent choices. Was quite a fan of the ladder match and also the Lions Den match at SummerSlam 98. It was just a great show. Lauren, you're right, mate. Says, has Becky Lynch and Seth been drafted yet? They have not. I'm talking about the possibilities of it. I do believe it is essentially a lock at this point, but it has not happened as of yet. This is not a report, the title. This is what we're talking about. Michael says, would you go to SummerSlam if it's in the UK? Probably, yeah. I mean, it's SummerSlam, isn't it? So probably. I don't know if I'd be able to stream from it, but I'd certainly try. Jermaine says, I really want to see Shayna versus Asuka at the Queen's Crown tournament and Shayna beating Asuka to win the title of Queen of the Ring. Let Shayna be the one to beat Becky for the Raw Women's title. I do think it's going to lead to a championship for Shayna. I do think she's winning, but I feel tonight is going to be very telling for Shayna Baszler. I think the route is there on SmackDown, but not necessarily on Raw. Steve's suggestion for the Royal Rumble is it's a dark horse, but I'm going Damian Priest for the men and Rhea Ripley for the women. That is dark horse stuff, mate. Dark horse stuff. Anan says, how would you rate MJF as a heel? Personally, his promo at Cincinnati was great, and surely he has everything to become one of the best heels in the wrestling industry. Yeah, I think he's one of the best heels in the wrestling industry already. I think he's already there. He is one of those that everything he does is absolute gold, but I do think at times he goes a little bit too far. He's very dedicated, he's very method. I just think at times he does go a little bit too far. Yeah, you do, Steve. You're clearly a big fan of the underdogs, which is the right way to be. Absolutely the right way to be. Rhea Ripley would be a very good winner, as it were. Just a very good winner. Right, we have just reached 59 minutes. I do like to wrap up before the hour is through. We do tend to go a little bit longer on the Sunday shows, but that's the Sunday shows. That is a different system. I have about 3 hours left to prepare for spoiler warnings, a bit of scripting I need to do, I need to eat. So I'm going to wrap it up there and say a big thank you to everyone who has joined me, everyone who subscribes, clicks like, just watches for as long as you do. The longer you watch, the better the average watch time. The more watch time I get, the closer I get to a point at which I am making a living doing this. Thank you everyone who has asked questions. There have been such good questions today, and I've really enjoyed them. Please do drop over to twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. You can see the pinned comment just over there. right at the top, the pinned comment. Have a click on that. You'll go to twitch.tv/Tom Colohue. Click follow there if you haven't already for spoiler warning tonight. And if you'd like, stick around here on YouTube, catch up with any news that you haven't already seen. And I will hopefully see as many of you as possible ready for spoiler warning tonight. I've been Tom Colohue, you've been fantastic, and I will see you all very soon.